Okay, welcome everybody to the 12 January meeting of CTAC. Before I call for the roll call, I want to remind everybody very strenuously of the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act. Numerous jurisdictions, Spotsylvania, Stafford, have suffered self-inflicted wounds because they didn't declare meetings among more than 2 elected representatives and announce what those meetings were going to be about, especially when they went into closed session. So a reminder, don't hit reply all, as much as you may be tempted to do so. Or you have a really neat picture of one of those few times in life when 95 is empty, don't send it to everybody. We are allowed to conduct email communication, telephone calls, conference calls with 2 or less members of the group, but more than 3 requires all the notifications, which creates an administrative burden not only for CTAC, but for the staff that supports us. So please, please, please resist that button on your computer.
By all means, reply to the chair, or by all means, reply to me, or by all means, reply to one of the staff.
But not
don't
everybody.
Reply to 25 people, because then it starts to become considered lobbying for particular outcomes, and then it becomes a problem.
I have a question. So you said 2 or less. So if it's less, that means you're meeting with yourself.
That's correct. Now, I go into no. Dave, I don't know how you count schizophrenia, whether that's 1 or 2.
I go into closed session too.
I can go to close session.
Yes.
Just close the bathroom door.
Oh.
Okay. Sir.
If I could make one request to everyone tonight, when speaking, please say your name and then speak so that people online know who you are. All of that. Thank you.
And for the,
Okay, that was Dave Swan who made that funny remark.
Thank you.
And for the minutes as well, we have to capture who voted yes or who said I propose the motion. If you propose the motion, say, Dave, I propose the motion, then we can write in the minutes Dave. But if you just wave your hand and you've got your mask on, and we have a new
Dave M and Dave S, I guess.
Exactly.
There we go. Thank
Okay.
you.
The meeting rules, is that coming from a federal law, or is that coming from a Commonwealth law? I don't remember now.
It's both. The law is called FOIA.
They're in agreement?
Yes. The law is called FOIA, the freedom of...
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
So it's the FOIA law, which is both federal and the state has their version of it.
And federally it's called the Sunshine Law or something like that, but they're almost worded.
That's a colloquial.
Yes.
Sunshine law. Yeah. It may be in law. Sunshine may be in the law.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
We just need to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, if you would call the roll, Matt.
All right. City of Fredericksburg, Dave McLaughlin.
Here.
Joshua Brock.
Present.
John Castellarin.
Here.
Matthew Rowe. Patricia Encarnacion. Spotsylvania County, Neil Tolleran.
Here.
He's
He's online.
Micah Cunningham. Caroline County, Ken Poe. Michael Hoyt. Justin Chenault. Stafford County, Dave Swan.
Here.
Glenn Goldsmith. Tara Durant. Hank Scharfenberg.
Here.
King George County, Jerron Hayes. Here. At large, Larry Groff. Rupert Farley.
Here.
Justin Savage. Rodney Thomas.
Here. He's online.
Thank you. Online.
Online.
Tamara Banks.
Here.
And Jane Leeds.
She's usually online.
I don't think so.
And that's the roll. We have a quorum.
Okay. Stafford County approved 2 new members at their first meeting yesterday, and so I'm hoping to get to them pretty quickly and they'll start engaging with us. So that will fill 6 of the 7 slots from Stafford.
That's good.
Now, Mr. Arndt, she just started her legislative session. I don't know if she's going to be replaced, but she's going to be out of pocket for the next 60 days. So not quite sure how that will work out. Okay, I'd like for everybody to take a look at the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda? Please.
I move to approve the agenda.
Oh, no, wait, we have a
And just state the name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In light of the news about Facebook's algorithms spreading misinformation and hate, and I understand the last time I checked, FAMPO was a customer of Facebook. I was thinking that this is not at all the sort of thing we want to support, and I would like CTAC to send a letter or a resolution to policy saying that we would like to take our business away from Facebook.
All right, so you want to make this a new agenda, a new item of discussion, new business?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, additions, deletions to the agenda? So can I have a motion? Or, go ahead.
Another item. In light of the snowstorm that just screwed up 95 so badly, I think it would also be in order to remind policy that this is another issue that could have been solved by congestion pricing. In the past, I've tried to encourage a legislative committee to do away with the laws prohibiting congestion pricing because of the fact that it would save us a lot of money and environmental issues and so forth. But this is a new issue that they might not have considered, the fact that we could have solved this problem. This problem would never have happened if the congestion pricing signs had lit up ahead of the snow saying the toll ahead is going to be $10 a mile. So I think it'd be nice to remind policy that this is another reason why we should be pushing to get congestion pricing legalized. So I would like to make that an agenda item.
Okay, so discussion of congestion pricing. Okay. Any other additions, deletions, changes? Can I have a motion, then we accept the agenda?
Those go in section 8. Where will they fit in?
Yes, we'll make them, so we'll make 8B, the first item, which was Facebook, and we'll make 8C, congestion pricing, the agenda, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, with everyone.
Okay, any objections to that? Okay, could I have a motion then that we approve the agenda as amended? So let them come back. Hold on just a second, whoever's recording for us.
So
What's going on?
So moved to approve the agenda as amended by Rupert.
Okay. Dave made the motion.
Yes, sir.
Dave, second.
Tamara Banks is seconding.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Neil Holler and opposed.
Okay, any abstentions? All right, then the vote is unanimous from all.
No.
I'm sorry.
Neil was opposed online.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you want to make? Yeah. Did you want to make a comment before we conclude that vote? I mean, you don't have to, but did you want to engage into any discussion
I
before
thought
we
we
take
already
the
got
vote?
through the discussion part, but I'll just say, I don't think it's required, but you know, you guys voted, it's good. I'm just opposed.
Okay. All righty. Okay, now I'd like to move on to approval of the minutes. Everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes online?
There's a copy on the screen if you need.
Any discussion, additions, or deletions to the minutes?
Rupert moved and McLaughlin will second.
Okay, well, first, any other
For
edits or deletions? Okay, so Rupert moved to accept the minutes as rendered. Dave seconded that. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries unanimously.
Great.
Okay, old business. Discussion on mission, priorities, structure, roles, and responsibilities. I appreciate the comments from the people that rendered those, and want to talk to you about a couple of things. One, Dave, I appreciate your comments about the purpose, some of those items being in the purpose, I think, from my perspective, there's a distinction between a purpose and a mission. Purpose is why we are here. Mission is what we intend to do. And I wrote the mission statement to promote the feeling that we were going to be actively engaged in doing those kinds of things. And that's why I made that distinction. Any discussion about that particular aspect?
This is Josh Brock. I don't know if it really matters, but more formally, a mission statement is, this is why the organization exists. And if there's a specific thing you want to do, then you might have a statement of goal or a statement of intent or something like that. So it's really just a nomenclature thing. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, do you have a recommendation on how we change mission statements?
Well, I mean, if you just want to take, if your mission statement is more goal-oriented, because goals are very specific and the organization might persist past those goals, you might just want to say something like statement of immediate intent, or, you know, give it a different name. When people look at a mission statement, they want to know what's an organization for. What is it? Why does it exist? So, like, if you wanted to say, a very general one might be, the CTAC exists to advise and inform the policy committee of the citizens' preferences and desires and needs in regards to transportation, something like that. And so that's going to be what we do no matter what the context is. That's what we're always here to do. And then if you want to talk about, you know, like, so it may be the case that we solve traffic congestion forever and we're good and we never have to do that again. But the organization will continue on to inform the policy committee of what the people want, so.
No, I understand your comments. I just want everybody to understand, I think the mission is not just the policy committee.
Well, whoever it is.
Yeah, so.
Example.
But I'd be interested in how you want to take that statement, the mission statement, and rephrase it so that it more closely aligns with what you said. Statement of goals, or?
Yeah, if you wanted to call it a statement of intent or a statement of goals, you could do that. Or you could say, you know, immediate priorities, something like that, just to differentiate it from, because if we ever complete all those, then the organization goes away, and that's.
I'm not planning on moving.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we assume the organization, unless we're here specifically, unless we're a committee to do a specific thing and that thing gets done, then we can dissolve. But that's not what we're here for. So. Okay.
Could we have a split screen that says what the draft mission statement is? Because it's hard. I don't remember what the draft mission statement is.
I don't.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah,
So there you go. Matt's just pulled it up.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Okay, so then I do have a comment. All right, so I think that and this is a mission statement, right?
Yes.
The mission of the CTAC.
Correct.
So the mission is not just to advocate for solutions, but it also is to be the conduit or encourage citizenship. I mean, we're the citizen transportation. So I think not addressing that piece of it, our duty, our responsibility, our aspiration maybe is that we should be informing citizens and getting information out of them as best we can. And that should be an important part of our mission.
Is that contained in the purpose? You know, you correctly pointed out that there were things contained in the purpose in the bylaws. I see these as additives. You think there should be one and the same?
I think.
Okay, that's fine. Then this mission say, in addition to our purpose.
Yeah, no, I don't want to change the purpose statement. I'm just figuring out how we incorporate. I'm sorry, you had a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. The mission is enduring. So we have to word it a way that it makes sense in what we're doing. And we're not just an advocate. We're also a very good listener to the public. We have to represent the public, the citizens. That's why our title is Citizens Transportation Advisory Group or Committee. That's one thing I saw right up front in the mission, and I apologize for not responding in writing. But our goal should be to encourage citizen participation in transportation matters. And I say matters, not planning, because the citizens don't do very good planning.
How would you
They're engineers.
tweak that then to, no, I understand it's twofold.
Yeah.
We're transmitting, but we're receiving, and we want more people engaged. So how would you tweak that to convey what you just expressed?
Well, I think you just said it. Encourage citizen participation.
To advocate for solutions? Would you say that?
You just said citizen advocate.
Yeah.
I think the problem we have here is advocacy itself.
I agree.
Technically, we are an advisory committee,
Yes.
not an advocacy
That's
committee.
right.
We are, as an advisory,
Let me ask a question,
we
though.
can make recommendations.
Why do you say that?
Recommendations are different than
Why do you say we can't
advocacy.
advocate?
Well, making recommendations from the citizen perspective is different than advocacy. Advocacy means that we try to push, and we push it to a level that, perhaps we have an idea of what we want to have happen. The outer connector. We want to encourage the outer connector. We can encourage it without actually being the advocates. We can recommend without advocacy.
I have a hard time with that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but if you're getting input or you're trying to promote a solution, you're going to get in front of somebody and say, you need to consider this, do this, embrace this, whatever. That kind of, to me, is advocacy. So I don't want to split hairs. I understand.
Well, it's the difference between connotation and denotation. The connotation is a little bit less of what an advisory committee is expected to be. An advisory committee advises. We look at what their plans are. We give advice on what we're seeing. We find out other areas of problems, and we give advice for recommendation. What we don't do is go out there and advocate for our position. We listen to the community, we hear what they have to say, and we transmit that. And if that information is coming directly from us, it's still a recommendation. It's not an advocacy for a specific position. It is a recommendation that we'd like to see the advisory committee. We want to see the technical committee investigate to see what they can actually do. An advisory role, advocacy role indicates a sense of our purpose.
Taking the position.
We're taking the position rather than being the conduit towards change.
I'm having a hard time because I'm seeing we're splitting hairs a little bit, because I see that as almost the same. We're absorbing. We've listened to our neighbors. We see things with our eyes. We talk to people, and then we take that and we synthesize it, and then we advocate for something that will fix those kinds of things. Now, do we have to take a vote and say, go to 100 people and say, do 51% of you or more do this? Probably not, because
you're not going to get that.
Yeah, you're not going to get that. So
that doesn't occur.
I'm struggling with this, and if you don't mind, play with that. This is why I really want you guys to do this. Of course, Christmas was a bad time, but I really want your thoughts on this, because I believe you know what I'm trying to get us to. I don't want to play wordsmithing, but if there are important thoughts we need to capture in how we convey this, then we need to do that. Because this part, I would like to get into a formal bylaw change. The priorities, the other stuff, I don't think requires a bylaw change, but this thing really will help define us. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, I'm not going to comment on the language, but just the concept, because the language is all up to you. It's not mine. But when you look at the purpose in your bylaws currently, it's talking about listening to citizens and advising the policy committee, etc.
Right.
This statement starts with the word advocate. And if you read it, it doesn't anywhere there say that you're listening to anyone.
Bingo. Or
it doesn't also explain how you find those solutions. So you're starting to advocate what? So before the word advocate,
skipping a step.
Something.
Well, I'll go back to that statement.
So I'm not opposed to the word advocate,
right.
But I think that the way the structure is, it's missing a prefix.
Well, let's go back to the thought we had just before. Solicit citizen input for solutions that mitigate. Now, once you solicit it, you got to advocate for it. Does any have any?
You look at it this way, and again, we're probably getting too far down in the weeds. And we need to simplify this and not make it so complex. What if we raise something that the policy committee is concerned about and ready to act on, and we put our feelers out, we talk to citizens? And what if they don't know what the hell we're talking about? Or if it needs a very detailed breakdown, then we have to be prepared for that. We have to come back to this committee and say, look, we need to put out, have Matthew or somebody put out, a quick blurb. Granted, we should have that if it's important enough. But the problem we've had, starting in 2016 when I came on this group, then it was a group, now it's a committee, is getting input from the public and getting their, and actually you have to inform them about what's going on. If you try to explain smart scale, before we had smart, it does. I would say that at least half of the people are interested, but they don't know what the heck you're talking about. So then you have to explain it, abbreviate it.
When it affects them.
And that's why I think, and Dave's input on this would be necessary. The goal is to try to get out to a group of people and not just individuals. Now, if you're standing in line getting a coffee at Starbucks or 7-Eleven, you're likely to engage in a conversation, but you're not going to have a big group of people. So if you can get out to a community forum, a meeting, and just to ask whoever's running it, if there's somebody running it, or if it's just an information session, if you could speak for a couple minutes, and I've done that. That's the way I think the strategy we should use to reach a larger group of people. And then there you can ask, hey, when I'm done talking, please give me some feedback, either via email, phone call, or in person.
Precisely why I want to create focus subgroups, because it's a big task. And I need your brains, your contacts, and everything else. I started last night by addressing the new Stafford County Board, 3 brand new members. And I said, I am your representative that I was appointed last year, and I'm now the chairman, and we want people to understand that traffic is impossible, and there are some solutions that have, I did that. You can see my comments when the video was posted. I would like all of you to do those kinds of things, whether you're talking about making provisions for handicapped people, or whether you're making provisions for interconnectivity using bus feeder routes and stuff like that. We need to get out, and this sounds a little harsh, but get in people's faces, audiences, so that they don't throw up their hands and say, it's never going to get better. It can get better, but we're going to have to get out there and start listening, synthesizing, and advocating. Because I'll tell you, too many times, unless a supervisor gets 15 phone calls from irate motorists that are stranded on I-95, they sort of go blinders to the stuff that occurs on a daily basis. Now, if congestion pricing is the answer, that is an option. If an outer connector helps mitigate that, that's an option. Whether it is the best one or the worst one is not for us to decide, because we're not the elected folks. Yeah. But I really, really think we need to get engaged. And the level of engagement you're talking about is precisely why I would like to create these sub-focus areas. So I would like the 3 of you, and I'm going to ask you to do this. Give me your best cut on this discussion that take that and adequately translate it to what you've expressed, and then we'll table that until the next meeting, because this is important. It's going to help set the purpose of this committee into the future.
My comment from just now, which I just want to reemphasize, is, to me, I don't get a vote, right? I don't get a vote in this, so I'm just giving you a staff comment. The part that's missing in that statement is the public.
Yes.
So I would just encourage you, insert the public back into that thing, and then it looks much better.
Okay, so,
That's what Dave was
That's why
talking
I
about.
started out with what's the bylaw.
And,
so,
and I,
remember, if you all
Second.
collaborate, no more than 2 at a time.
Yes, that
Yeah. But please, I mean, you all have captured key points, and I'd like the 3 of you to just either collaboratively or individually, so we can put this to bed on the next meeting. Because this thing, I think, needs to be in the bylaws. So when somebody says, you want to join a group? Well, it's not a listening forum where you just sit there and absorb information. It's a forum where smart people go out, solicit opinions, synthesize what they've heard, what they've seen, what they've been exposed to, and help us move the process forward.
Okay, so mechanically, how can 3 of us do that with the restrictions that are now?
will work.
I mean, this is goofy, but
I know it is.
I mean, if you drafted up, for example, and said, here's a draft, you couldn't send it to the 2 of us.
No, but what you can do is what we
Send
do
it to,
in the office.
he can send
I
it.
can send it to you and you can send it to him.
Send it to Hank.
And then he can send it.
We'll work it out.
Yeah, you
We'll
can
just have to,
make changes or something.
It's not,
in the,
Do it in a circle.
Maybe. Yeah.
Do it in a circle, so he sends it to you.
Okay,
you
cool.
send it to
It's an end around.
so,
yeah, that's right, send it
As long as you don't
serially.
get together and have a meeting more than 2 people, it's fine.
okay, cool.
That's all right.
You want to draft it up? Sure. And then send it
Yeah.
to Dave, and then send it to me.
That's fine.
I'll send it back, and we'll go
That all works.
down a couple times, and
Yeah, that's it.
then we'll get it up to you.
Please.
Just as an aside, and not going to a rabbit,
You'll be the lead, how's that?
if I could have just a minute, a quick comment. Standing in line at Northern Tools last weekend. The biggest state trooper probably in the state, standing in front of me. And he happened to turn, and he's a first sergeant in the state police. Well, he and my son-in-law are best friends, or because they're both in law enforcement. And so we started a conversation. And I said, how'd you do on the 95 standstill? He said, not well. I could not move a trooper up and down 95, and I needed to move all of them up and down 95. And I said, well, what was prohibiting you from moving? Was it just the cars, sitting? He said, no, the construction. He said, we didn't have that in the past in the volume we have it now. And it actually caused a huge impediment to being able to respond to a 50-mile span of the highway that really needed state troopers. So,
I really hope.
What's that got to do with the subject at hand?
well, reaching out to the public.
Okay.
He was a member of the public, started a conversation. There were others around us listening and shaking their head.
Yeah, and another group that I reached out to
An example.
last week is I reached out to the Stafford County planners
Yeah.
and wanted to talk to them. And I would like to do that to your other municipalities with one of you guys in attendance so that they don't think we're playing little games. But you talk to people, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or you talk to a citizens group or whatever, or you write a letter to the editor and see what kind of reaction you get, and we start getting people's opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. Tamara Banks. This is great, and please don't think we're being facetious. I'm just making a comment because I talk to people every day, all day.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. It's great that we're going to these groups, but most of the people in these groups do not use any form of type of transportation. I think we need to start going into the neighborhoods and not being afraid to go into the neighborhoods. I drop my daughter off at, my grandbaby off at school. I will pull my car around, I'll start talking to the teachers outside. I go to the Marriott Hotel, I'll sit in that lobby, and I'll start talking to anybody that passes by, as evident in my PTAB report. That's what we need to start, and we need to start with the people. These groups, don't get me wrong, this is an awesome group, and I love my groups I'm with, but they're the one that don't utilize transportation.
I don't disagree with a thing you've said, but if we're going to do it, we got to have more than one person do it.
Yeah.
Then we all should go into the neighborhood.
Well, we all need to task organize, which is, again,
At a time or so.
This is Josh again. I want to, so the primary issue is, if this is going to be a mission statements are generally, if you change the mission statement, you're doing some very significant change to the core element of the organization. The primary issue with this, yes, we're not talking about who we're advocating to or from, and that's important, or on whose behalf. We're also talking about very specific things: mitigate, reduce traffic congestion, improve access to mass transit, those kinds of things. Those things might change without the organization changing.
Right, good point.
Right, and so those are specific things. And going into neighborhoods, That sounds like a great idea, but it's a specific, it may be one day we don't need to go into neighborhoods, and yet the organization will persist. So if you're gonna pick a mission statement, pick one that describes essentially for all time, as far as you know, what the organization is here to do. Because if it's here to do those things, when those things are done, we all go home and we never come back.
But realistically, I don't see us ever being done. Because even if you create a baseline solution, there's always room for improvement.
Right.
Technology advances.
That's okay, so if you were the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA's mission statement, I don't know what it actually says, would say something like to make sure that air travel is safe for Americans, or, you know, in the United States of America. That is just always true. It may be that the FAA ends up spending 20 years sitting around doing nothing because air travel is maximally safe. It's perfectly safe. But that's still its mission. It's still going to be there thinking, okay, how can we make it safer, or what do we do if it stops being safe, right? If they said, you know, to make sure that the 737 flies safely, well, one day it will do that, and then they're done. Right, so the further out you can get from, like, you don't want to lock yourself into specific things that you're doing. You want to be, what do we do? This may be how we do it. This may be the things that we do, the goals, even if we can never reach them. But if theoretically we were to reach them, then we would be done. And that's not how a mission statement is really supposed to go. It's supposed to be very, very broad.
No, you're right. I mean, we could basically write a mission statement that has that broad statement, and then actually follow up the mission statement with the mission statement will be achieved through, and then follow it up with those sort of things.
Exactly.
Okay, you three have a great homework assignment. I mean, again, I just want to be able to convey that we are not going to just sit around. We want to solicit people's problems, opinions, thoughts, and try in conjunction with the experts, the planners, the elected officials to get the ball off of dead center. Because I don't see anything really happening. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw a lot of money wasted on a study, for example, on Lafayette Boulevard, that will never be implemented. I saw all sorts of studies that were rejected for less than optimum reasons back in 2013 to realize a transportation map that was laid out back in 1975. And if we just sit back and do nothing, we're going to be complaining about this for the next, well, I won't last 50 years, but for the next however many years.
You're right and wrong at the same time. You're right that there's a lot of work that gets done that never goes anywhere.
That's right.
But on the Lafayette study specifically, there is a smart scale application that came out of that study, which the policy committee endorsed. And which
they did endorse that. I didn't get that out of the meeting.
They did not endorse the report.
They endorsed
from
the study.
Consultant. They did not endorse the study. They endorsed projects that came out of the study, which are now in this year's smart scale application. So Matthew designed the submission of those projects.
All right, I stand corrected because that was not my impression listening to what you're saying. But you can report specifically on
the report. The report they did not endorse because they were not happy with everything in it. But specific projects have been endorsed, and Matthew submitted them to VDOT for funding requests in smart scale.
Yeah, there will be a smart scale round 5 project on Lafayette Boulevard currently that will be going into the pre-application phase. And that's from this recent Lafayette Boulevard study. And then there was a Lafayette Boulevard project in smart scale round 4 that received funding as well.
So what has, the good is that staff and eventually the policy committee and the TAC have extracted from that study good projects, and those projects have been put forward for funding. But the policy committee seems to feel that there were shortcomings in the total package, and so they didn't want to endorse the final report of the study. Which
This does not replace his report on the findings of the policy committee that you'll see later on the agenda. But, oh, and by the way, Stafford is going to send back Meg Bohm,
yes.
Crystal Benucci, and the new representative,
the new lady,
Monica
Gary, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you understand what I'm asking you all to do on this, something that conveys where we're trying to go.
This whole discussion has brought a little bit of confusion in mind. are we worried about writing an emission statement or a purpose statement for CTAC, or are we really talking about what does the current CTAC want to focus on? In other words, that's not everything that FAMPO is involved with, right? There's nothing up there about the movement of goods and services. There's nothing up there about so, and our mission statement really includes all of that stuff under FAMPO. As our generals, the CTAC could get involved in all of this. So, do we want to simplify and say, hey, here's some things we want to focus on, and those kind of things. It would certainly simplify, I think, maybe what we're trying to do. And then we have, because the subgroups you're talking about setting up, talk to those specific things. They don't talk about anything moving, service goods through trucks and, trains and things. And so maybe that's the problem. We don't need to read kind of get to say, what is CTAC's mission, but what do we want to, what are our current goals and our emphasis items or something like that?
I have no problem with that.
I'd say it's a little different approach to, it would tie into, it would focus us on.
Dave, it's good. This is, I threw this out last meeting because I got a lot of smart people in this room, and I knew I would get a reaction.
And so we don't get into this, what's the purpose of CTAC, what's the, under FAMPO, but it's like, here's what we've agreed, this CTAC, we agreed, these are things we want to really go after and emphasize, and we want an extra focus on these particular issues.
Okay.
Is that help?
Well, you say that, but,
it doesn't mean we don't do anything else, but I'm just saying, focus, these are concentration focus items.
That really shouldn't really be in the mission statement.
I'm not saying it's not a mission statement, right? The mission statement is that broader thing.
I think the purpose
is what kind of, here's some emphasis items, here's some goals, what are some like, we want to really emphasize our efforts on these three particular things.
The mission statement should general.
It's like, it's not going to change, we're always going to.
Right.
Well, here's your challenge. We're going to put whatever you come up with to a vote.
Okay.
If it passes, you all are geniuses. If it doesn't pass,
back to the showers.
I
think someone online wants to speak.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
This is Jane Lee trying to chime in.
Go ahead,
Hello?
Jane. We're here.
Yes,
Can you hear us?
thank you.
Jane.
Yes, I want to remind all of you that you need to identify yourself so that we who cannot see or hear you know who's speaking. That would be helpful. My comment is, and I'm going to walk it back a little bit, to if you want to solicit people's opinions and advice and wants and needs, then you're going to have to produce something. Otherwise, you're going to lose interest. They're not going to come back to you. They say, well, I told you all my stuff and you didn't do anything. So it is a form of advocacy, like it or not, because you are there as an advisory. You can advise whatever that person asks for to the people that make the decision. Tell them that these people want these things or need these things without being a direct advocate. You're just telling them what's out there. You're making them aware. It's an awareness thing. It's not an advocacy per se, but it is making people aware. And that's the main point of advocacy is awareness. It's not about making a decision.
Well, Jane, I don't think we get to make the decisions, but we can base it. I still think we can put out to decision makers.
No, and I'm not saying that we make the decision. I'm saying that we give the information to the decision makers. They make the decision. But they can't make a decision on something that they don't know about.
No, no disagreement, but you just can't present them with a laundry list of stuff because you will, their eyes will glaze over and they'll go on to something else. All politicians.
But who's to say it's going to be a laundry list? It might be a lot of people saying the same thing.
Well, you're putting a burden on either us or the staff, which I don't necessarily, personally, I'm not unwilling to do. That might be a little bit difficult for the staff, but let's go down this path
If you want
initially.
the people to invest into telling you what they want, then you're going to have to take some responsibility for that. Otherwise, they're not going to tell you.
Well,
they're going to lose interest and walk away.
Jane, Dave Swan.
Yeah.
You basically are not trying to advocate the people that you represent. And you're correct when you say that it's your duty to inform. That's one of our duties, is to inform both the public and the policy committee and the fine staff that's here at FAMPO. But we are, as you describe it, we're a conduit for information. That's essentially what we are. But we're more than just a conduit. Hank doesn't tell me something and I go and repeat it to the policy committee. You have to add value both ways. And Hank will add value, or Dave, when they respond to what I'm putting forth. And I'll take that value up the chain, up, beyond the CTAC to the members here in forums like this meeting right here, and in any other means, written or whatever, to whoever the decision makers are. And that's the job of Ian and the staff here and Hank to communicate with the policy committee. As a member, I've been here long enough, and I used to sit with the policy committee when I was chairman. It's not, you don't vote there, you're basically a conduit. You're in the same role you are with the public. But the problem we have is that some of the issues are pretty complex. They're not widely popular. So you have to recognize that before you start talking to Jane Q. Public. I'm not going to spout on about it, but having tried this over the last 6 or 7 years, the most difficult thing we do is to get public input, reach the public. And the other thing, Jane, one thing you said was you have to show them something or have something. I agree with that. It's much better to show them a piece of paper and then you can talk to what it's about than it is to try to explain the concept to somebody who knows nothing other than the fact that the bus doesn't get here or that I can't get through traffic. So we've tried things before here. Believe me, we haven't been sitting for the last 7 or 8 years. We've gone out, but the problem, one of the problems that I have with our success measure here, and if it's a measure of performance, so be it. I think it is. How many members of the public are sitting in this room today? 0.
I don't know. I'm not there.
I know.
You'll have to tell me.
And how many members of the public are online? Part of our conversation. So one of the things that I tried, and I know Dave, when he called me, did, was try to get bodies in this room, try to get people in here. And that's why when we went out in a forum, whether it be the policy committee, a VDOT meeting, we'd speak. We'd say, hey, you need to come to the CTAC meeting.
This is why last night I explained what CTAC is, not its mission, just what it stands for, the fact that it's a subcommittee of FAMPO. I'm the chairman, and we're out there looking for solutions. And we all need to do that so we can start filling up the online, the in-person. It sort of goes back to the point where I know you get frustrated sometimes. People say, yeah, what's a CTAC? Yeah. But when you start sending letters to the editor, or you get up in front of an elected or a body of people and saying, I sit on this committee that's its mission is to receive input from you and come up with recommendations that we can pass on to decision makers, and they see you and they know that that's what your purpose is, then I think we gain some traction. So I understand a lot of frustration. All we can do is try. And I guarantee that we will evolve what I've started over the coming months. We'll find out what works, what doesn't work, where we need to adjust. But let me go back to some of the wording on some of the comments that I received on the specific missions. They're good. I struck out pedestrian safety on bad recommendations from your staff. Not you. We won't talk about it.
Struck it out?
But anyway, we'll put those back in.
Yeah.
But I intend to.
Tell her that.
What do you mean?
Struck it out, took it out of there. Pedestrian safety.
No, she didn't do it. We're going to put it back in. Yeah.
That wasn't.
That was, no, that was, we'll get it back in. But let me.
Tamara is not a staff member. She is.
I know.
Does not work.
I know, she's one of us. Let me sort of cut to the chase. I see it as my prerogative as chairman to create sub-focus areas. I am not going to task anybody with those. I'm not going to publish who does not get involved because I don't want to embarrass anybody or whatever, but I'm sure there are a lot of people in this room that would like to get involved to whatever degree they can to help move this process forward. And so we're going to do this, and some of them may have a member of one, me, and some of them may have several members who are genuinely interested. And if we find out in 3 or 4 or 5 months that we don't get anywhere, we're going to look and see what we can do differently, or whether that idea was good, or what we should modify. But I'll tell you what, I'm passionate about fixing things, whether it's giving people other alternatives to cars, other alternatives to I-95 or Route 1, making sure that people with disabilities can live a normal existence with regards to all of that stuff. And we can do it, but it's such a major task that we've got to divide the mission and conquer. So I just want to let you know that, yeah, we're going to go forward. I see that as my prerogative. We will change and modify the stuff if we have better solutions, better alternatives. And I'm looking for smart people to help me word this stuff better to convey the right thing to the public. And then just like I did yesterday, if you see opportunities to get out in front of either informal groups or formal groups that we need to take advantage of and say who we are and what we're looking at and what do you think, then I will help facilitate that, or you can help facilitate my participation. But let's get this show moving. So, good.
I did submit a mission statement for review. I didn't hear anything back on it, but I did do that process.
No, Jane, I saw what you sent back. And I mean, the comment about...
It's in front of us right now on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking for our comments and for our, input, I did that, but nothing came back. Yes.
Wasn't allowed
I know
to
you read it, but I didn't hear anything other than
received it.
You got it.
Tonight is when the feedback occurs, because in order to keep this discussion within the laws of FOIA, I couldn't engage with you, and we made the agreement that we would get comments by the end of November and then distribute them to everybody for this meeting. Now, there are some things I personally believe are unrealistic, and we need to temper whatever we do with realism. For example, I don't ever see us eliminating all the infrastructure that's been done and going totally back to walkable communities. It's not going to happen. We can improve upon what we have now, but we're not going to transition in its totality. And Jane, in all fairness to you—
I never suggested that. I never suggested that.
Jane, I'm speaking generally. With regard to your specific thing, your comment about the American sense of entitlement, that's I'm not sure how you do that. It is so ingrained in our culture. Now, again, we can provide other options that disincentivize people to be the solitary driver or drive at all. But that's a very iffy statement, and I'm not quite sure how to tackle the one that says about the sense of entitlement. But trust me, I read clearly what you said. Dave?
Quick comment. Driving is a privilege in this country.
The second sentence of...
Not an entitlement. There's nothing that makes it an entitlement. Every day you get in a car.
But people have that perception. They
I
feel
know.
entitled.
It's the wrong perception,
Yeah.
and that's what's wrong with, that's why we're having so many accidents. That's why we're having people driving, even though their license has been suspended, which is on the upswing. Driving drunk, you know, there's not as much respect for the power of an automobile anymore, whether it be electric or gas. So we're not going to change that, and I agree with Hank on that. There are other things. We're dealing mainly with our contact with the public, and this is Dave Swan, and I'll just say that when I go out and I think I'm going to encounter, let's say I go to a Stafford County supervisor presentation at Brook High School, which I remembered about 2 years ago, I wore my FAMPO hat. And if somebody, you know, I was waiting for somebody to come and say, what's FAMPO? Let me tell you what FAMPO is, and then let me tell you about something called CTAC. And what problem do you have with the highways? What's your major gripe about transportation in this area? Get a conversation going. But if you don't, if there, you know, we should get to the point, have a goal to get to the point where if you're wearing a FAMPO hat somewhere, somebody's going to walk up and say, hey, how's it going with transportation? Or what are you guys doing today? Or, you know.
Amen. That's why I want us to get out and be known. You got a comment, Dave?
Jane, is it fair to say what you provided us, or what you provided the chair, really gets into the kind of things that would be discussed down at the working groups, which is what the chair is trying to set up as we have these working groups, and the details about things that you've described, not the overall mission of what CTAC should be doing or focusing on at this time. So everything you've said there is all valid discussion on, but those are really going to be included in one or two of the different working groups that we're talking about establishing. Is that fair to say, Jane?
Yeah. I think that
so at this point, we're just at the level of trying to organize ourselves and get started with the broad mission or broad objectives that we're trying to get at. And then we will get broken down into the working group, which obviously you're gonna be perfect on at least one of those working groups.
The sense of entitlement is not going to go away unless you offer people something, an alternate. There is no alternate. Basically, it's not attractive. It's not something that they want.
Jane, this is
if we don't listen to them and okay.
This is exactly what one of the areas that we may want to pursue. I would never get in a car if I had alternatives. Now, those alternatives may be so cost prohibitive that they're not realistic, but that's some of the things that need to be thought about, discussed, and strategized. So I don't disagree with anything you've said, but as Dave pointed out, and quite rightly, this is going to be an integrated effort. The things that talk about assisting people with disabilities. There's a working group that's good. Now, will you get talking traffic lights everywhere in the FAMPO region? No. But we can help make it evident to the planners based on feedback we get from the public, what are the most critical areas that if you have to make a choice, you should get these in priority 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is, like I said, this is going to evolve. I don't intend to change the human being, but I intend to change the human being's response to situations by providing them better alternatives.
Exactly. Exactly, and that's my focus. It's just to give them it's not just for people who are disabled, it's for everyone. We're talking climate change, we're talking air quality, we're talking affordability, we're talking desirability. Does it go where I need to be?
Jane, we will attack
that's
all
for
of those
everyone.
That world peace is beyond my ability, but we will. Those are some things we're going to attack. Now, I just want to put some expectation management. You know, there are how many of us? To the degree that we can devote the time and the energy to do this, we're going to get some good things done, but we're not going to get everything done. And if we have to adjust where we place our effort, we'll do that. But this is going to be iterative. And trust me, Jane, I read very carefully what you said, and there's a lot of good things that can be embraced by some of our effort in this room. Now, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say.
I wanted to address the public comment.
Sure.
I didn't know about CTAC until after I got this job. About a year ago, I didn't know what it was. And reading Smart Scale and all those other things, it's not in plain language. So a lot of times the public gets intimidated by the words and the verbiage that is used. And because of that, they don't want to be bothered. The mentality, and I know this because, one, I am J&Q public, and I talk to a lot of the public. You put something in front of them with words they don't understand, not only are they going to lose interest, but this committee is not going to mean nothing to them. You have to make the uncaring care by giving them information that they can understand. Now, I know I pretty much could call anybody and ask them to explain Smart Scale to me.
I don't want you to. I don't want to explain it.
But if I'm going to represent people and we're going to use this terminology, they need to know what it is, what it does, how it affects them.
Well, how would you, if instead of saying Smart Scale, you said...
Well, just an example.
Yeah, no, but you're correct. But you're going to put it in the words of the audience. We want a solution that gives us the best benefit for the dollars expended, enhances the quality of life for most of the people, and there's 2 or 3 other acronyms that are embraced by Smart Scale. I would never say Smart Scale to anybody because their eyes would roll over.
Okay. Well, so now give that to me in Urdu, give that to me in Farsi, give that to me in Spanish.
I can't help you.
Well,
But that's our public. That's the people who we serve.
yeah.
I don't understand it, so I'm going to ask questions. How many of you are going to field questions out in the public when you hand them a piece of paper that they don't understand, and you have to break it down to them? How many of us are going to do that? And if you let me finish, sir, because I am the public. I take the bus, I take the train. While there's no snow outside, I do not ride my bike because I live off 17. But how can you explain to me that these roads are going to be best for me to utilize if you're putting words in there that I don't understand?
No, I agree with you, but I'll tell you, this is going to be a bridge too far, at least for the immediate future, because you guys aren't staffed, multilingual, or funded to get that kind of stuff. We're not going to be doing it, so we're going to get to the 80% solution. And I'm sympathetic, but, it's not going to happen realistically.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Send it to me in a text, and let me use Google Translate so I can reach the people that I need to reach, so they can be in these meetings, so they can listen online. Give me something, because it seems like we're talking about this, but we're really not talking about community. Now, you found my best email. We're really not talking about community. We're talking about us. Let's get away from us and start talking about community. What can we do to get this information out to the community that they can understand it and they want to come to these meetings?
Well, I think that's what we've been talking about.
What you just said, there's nobody from the community here.
Right now, we're working on improving that. Go ahead.
Quick question, quick response to that.
Yes, sir.
What percentage of the population within the FAMPO region speaks Farsi?
Pretty much everybody at Hazel Hill, but I can get that information for you. I can give you a breakdown of the demographics of
if I address a group and I don't speak Farsi.
Translate.
I can't translate. I speak English, okay? And they live in America. And there are people in this area that speak Farsi. And we can reach those people.
We can reach those people.
But if the person I'm talking to or persons tell me that, hey, we don't understand what you're talking about because we only converse in Farsi, then I know I've got a task. I got to go back to Hank. I got to go back to Ian.
You got to find an alternative.
And I said, look, here's the situation. We need to reach out to these people. So let's develop a plan, to do it and get somebody. Now, Stafford County Sheriff's Department has the same problem you just articulated.
Because nobody wants to, they'll pull out their phone to take pictures of a crime.
Well, they
will not pull out the phone to put a translator on there so we can talk to our public.
Well, I don't know about the phone, and Google, I don't know if we, It's kind of like Facebook. I don't know if we can really trust, that type of medium. It's not an approved medium, so.
So just two quick comments from us as staff. The first thing is, I'm about to employ a replacement for Stacy, who will be a full-time person doing communications for FAMPO and Title VI work, which is to make sure that we look after the disabled community and all that in terms of their communication here. Mm-hmm. We will not have a translator in Farsi and in Spanish and whatever on the premises. Right. However, if we find a person or a community that wishes to engage FAMPO, we then locate those services as and when needed. So we can assist, but we can't employ a full-time person to do each language. Hang on, let me finish, please. So we will provide assistance to do all of those things, but we're not going to drive the process because the public engagement person communicates on all sorts of mediums, including tables at farm stalls, and we stand outside the transit center. I've been there myself, and we did our survey by standing outside of the transit center. So we cover communication at a certain level by employing one full-time staff member. We have a vacancy right now, and I'm busy interviewing at the moment. We have somebody interested. I'm not sure whether they're right fit, but we're arranging another interview with that person. We will have a person on staff to assist all of you with that. But it'll only be one staff member, and they won't be able to speak all of those languages, but we will provide the other assistance in other languages as and when required. So we can support that. Second thing that I just wanted to say is, in the interest of time, I think we might have diverged a little bit from the initial topic. Yes. So I'm just requesting that we clarify whether or not we finished with that topic, or if we want to carry on with the topic and include some of these items as well.
Call for a question.
I will tell you. Okay. So no, we're going to, three folks are going to come on back after some collaboration and give us a objective or a mission statement or something like that, and we'll vote on that at the next meeting.
Great.
I've already established that we're going to have committees, and whether we call them sub-focus areas or not, we're going to comply with FOIA rules, and we're going to minimize the demand upon the staff to hold open meetings and try to the greatest extent possible have those focused subcommittees report back on their findings so that we don't get into a bog set, bunch of guys sitting around talking, guys and gals, excuse me, and can get some focused information about that particular topic. Now, whether that occupies the entire meeting for a given month or 20 minutes or 30 minutes remains to be seen. I don't know. Lastly, before we close this agenda item out, I'm going to ask any of you if you have an interest in either being part of one of those three focused subcommittees, which is traffic mitigation, mass transit advocacy, or safety to include pedestrians and bicycles, please email me. You can CC Matt and or Ian, and let me know if you're interested in being a member or if you're interested in taking a lead in one of those. This is strictly voluntary. I am not going to report at the next meeting who I didn't get a response from. If nobody responds, then I got a lot of work to do. But I think you're all interested in helping move this process forward. And so to the degree you feel comfortable, let me know what you'd like to do. And with that, I will close out this agenda item. Okay, moving on to Mr. Ollis's report.
Matt, can you click on the agenda of the policy committee meeting? This is not a report. This is just letting you know what happened at the policy committee meeting, and I'm really going to fly through it quickly because some of you have already attended the policy committee or watched it online and you don't want to rehash the whole thing. This is the policy committee agenda from November. We approved the air quality conformity report. That is the process by which the federal government reviews projects that we put in our long-range plan to see what the impact is on air quality. And so we started that process in the meeting. The CTAC then approved the final report when they met So the policy committee appointed the TAC on their behalf to approve the air quality report. I can tell you, subsequent to that, we have received from the EPA, from the FTA, and from Federal Highways a letter saying that our proposed projects in the long-range plan do conform to the air quality regulations. So we have received the approval subsequently. I then gave my administrator's report, which I'm not going to rehash here. The Lafayette Boulevard study, there's the item you were referring to earlier. The policy committee noted the final report of the Lafayette study, but they did not endorse it because they felt that there are one or two things which they would have liked to see differently. Particularly, the big discussion was around the widening of Lafayette Boulevard and whether that should or shouldn't be done and to what extent it should be done, and they didn't agree with the consultant's report necessarily. And it's a difficult problem because, to boil it down for you in a sentence, there's not enough right-of-way to put 4 lanes on the whole length of Lafayette Boulevard, which means that to do that, you've got to buy land from all the homes and landowners all the way down, and VDOT is not in a position to be able to do that right now. So that was one of the bones of contention. So they did not approve the report, but they just noted, thank you very much for giving us the report. We noted, and it was accepted on that basis. The long-range plan update, the consultants that are doing the modeling for that long-range plan gave their report to the policy committee. I think that was gladly received. The letter of FAMPO to the Virginia Secretary of Transportation, that letter is to request specific interventions to improve all of those items that you're concerned about, which is public transportation. The letter requests the attention be paid to having weekend trains and reverse commuting trains, which will go in the other direction to which the current VRE trains go. Because what if you want to come and work in Fredericksburg, but you live further north? How do you get here? So it attends to that. It attends to widening of the I-95 further south from Route 3 essentially down to Massaponax, adding an additional lane. It talks about making better use of Route 1 by using clever technology to try and get more cars able to go through there, because there are lots of traffic lights that are not coordinated, lots of access points, and the tarmac's laid. We already have the road. How can we better utilize it? It's all that kind of thing. The letter was basically agreed to, but we were asked not to send the letter because there's a new governor who may appoint a new Secretary of Transportation, so we've been asked to hold back the sending of the letter until such time as the new governor decides whether to appoint a new Secretary of Transportation. The public involvement activity summary, Stacey, as her last effort before she moved to a new position, gave a summary of what's happened with public involvement, the kinds of things you were talking about earlier. What has FAMPO done? She's given a whole presentation of what FAMPO has done, and you can find that presentation on the website. The Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, we call it CMAQ for short, and Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, we call it STBG for short. That is a process by which we receive money from the federal government to build roads, to build bike paths, to do whatever else. And FAMPO's role is to decide which projects get the money. And so that process is to design a scoring system so that we can give some technical advice to the policy committee as to which projects are more worthwhile than others. And that scoring methodology we've been working on, and the final draft can be presented to the policy committee this month. Public comment period, those were just amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program. We have to have, it's a document which we have to have listed all of the projects in our region that are currently active. And those were the projects that we have to add to the Transportation Improvement Program report. And then there were two discussions, the one about amending the policy committee bylaws, which was requested by the chair of the policy committee, and it's an ongoing discussion. And the other one was the possibility of adding jurisdictions. The King George County asked whether, if we're going to amend the bylaws, we shouldn't also be looking at the possibility of adding other counties to FAMPO. And so there was a discussion held about that. No final decision on either of those items. It's an ongoing discussion. Correspondence, I believe you made some, was it this the meeting where you made some comments about what you were doing at CTAC?
No.
The previous one you did, okay. So, and then I had...
This was the letter to Spotsylvania.
Yes. This meeting, we had to announce, unfortunately, 2 of our staff members were leaving us, and that has subsequently happened, and I will in a moment introduce our new staff member when we get to staff reports. Okay, that's what the meeting, that's all I need to say. It's just to give you a quick thumbnail of what's going on around you so that you're aware.
Okay, let's see, member discussion and action. Oh, for any public comments that either online or written that we've received.
Mr. Chair, we've not received written public comments this month or since your last meeting, but if there are any comments online that anybody wishes to make, I suggest they make them now.
Anybody out there that is not already a CTAC member that would like to make a comment to the committee? Okay, hearing none, let's go to member discussion. If you'd like to talk about the draft plan first, we'll go to 8A first.
Yes, I've got some very good news for you. I know Rupert is already aware of this and has been working on it already since we tabled it at the TAC. But if you look at the screen there, we have finally tabled the draft of the new long-range transportation plan, and we put it on the website separated by chapters. Each chapter is separately loaded onto the website so that you can download it from home as separate chapters and read it. The draft, so we've put it out there for our committees, and we're going to be asking the policy committee to put it out for public comment at their meeting on the 24th of January. It is over 700 pages. So if you thought that this was a small thing, the staff has spent 2 years writing this, and most of it we've done this year. So we completed this. If you want to know what all the 6 staff members at FAMPO have been doing for the last year, here's one of the things. Every one of those titles you see there is the 7 chapters, plus about 7 or 8 appendices, which includes all of those other things you've been hearing about, the consultants who's doing the modeling, the federal highways who've been checking our projects to see whether they conform to the congestion, the air quality analysis. All of that stuff has finally come together in one document, and there it is. So you can go and read it, and I said to Rupert on email, we've hidden two errors in the document just to see if anybody reads the 700 pages.
Oh, a challenge, I love it.
He's found the one already in chapter 1. So there it is for you. All the appendices are there. And it includes, we've integrated the Greenways study. We've integrated so many of the other projects that have been going on in FAMPO, including the things that are happening in your localities. So for the first time, we've included the changes in the transportation system for the VA clinic, the Veterans Clinic, the new Stafford downtown, which will be built in the future, is in the long-range plan. The new changes to the Area 1 plan for the city of Fredericksburg, we've got just a snapshot of it in there. So this plan is what's supposed to integrate the buses, the trains, the roadways, the new plans that the counties and the city have got to improve their area into one document. We've done some scenario planning with the VDOT scenario. VDOT is the Virginia Department of Transportation. So their modeling experts have done some modeling of potential future scenarios. It's all in there. This is the draft. So we're asking you to look at it and send us any comments. And we have one person that we want you to send all the comments to, and that person is our new staff member. Becky, why don't you just stand up? Okay. We just want to welcome Becky Golden. She has over 30 years experience. She's actually an engineer, believe it or not. So Becky is an engineer, and she is here in a senior capacity to help us with all of our transportation planning. And she is collating all of your comments and inputs on the long-range plan. So if you have any, and we will share with you her email address, we'll send you out in the morning an email with all the details. So any comments or corrections you find with this long-range plan, she'll collate them all for us as staff, and then we'll make those edits and corrections before the policy committee votes it through, not this month, but in about 2 months. So you've got until basically the end of February to give us comments on the long-range plan. It's a big document, and of course, this, once it's approved, gives the 2 counties and the city the support to apply for funding for over 300 projects. So it's a big deal, right? And this gets reviewed every 4 to 5 years. So this is the new one. We're inviting you to read it and to send us your comments.
And if I'll just add one thing, I know that Jane Leeds has already provided comments, and Jane, just FYI, those have been forwarded along to Becky as well. So thank you for that, and anyone else has any comments, please forward them along to Becky.
Okay. This is Dave McLaughlin. I have a question. But haven't we approved and finalized the fiscally constrained project list?
Yes.
So there's no sense commenting on that.
No, but this document is 700 pages, and it covers not just the list of projects. I know that's the thing that everybody's interested in because it allows the funding for those 300 odd projects. But this is not just about the projects. It's the scenario planning. It deals with the active transportation plan. So in there is a complete active transportation plan for biking in the region, for pedestrian paths in the region. It's all in there. How are we going to improve them? What's happening about them in our region? In there is the modeling of how, if we build those projects, what the impact will be on congestion. The model tells you in that document whether congestion will improve if we build these projects or not, and where it will improve and where it won't. So it gives you stuff which you won't find anywhere else. And it's not just the list of projects, but it's an entire summary of transportation in the region.
My comment was just basically the opposite. There's no sense looking at the long-range transportation plan because it's set in stone at this point. So you focus on the rest of the plan, I mean the LRTP, right?
Correct. So the project list you can't change now, but you can change all other 7 chapters, right?
That was the
project list is an appendix. But all the other stuff we can change.
Right.
There's not a word in the rest of the document we can't change if it's warranted.
One other, if I may, please. So for Jane, if people knew, it said, so when you look at this, 700 pages, we talked about this earlier, it's overwhelming, it's all this, so you can look at it, first of all, you can ask people hey, take a look at this place. So we're invoking more input to this just from people we know. So that's one little thing we can do at CTAC to get more participation in that. The other thing we can go through, and we've done this through some other documents previously, is as we go through it, we look at, say, your engineers who wrote this, or your experts in transportation planning, and you're asking us citizens, uneducated, untrained citizens that don't do this day in and day out, to review this stuff. Write it in a way, organize it in a way that makes it easier for us and our neighbors and our friends and the people that are on our HOA or whatever that can look at it and make meaningful input. And so that's something we can do because we have a little bit of a knowledge, not to the level of the staff, obviously, but we have a little knowledge now on what this stuff does. And then we're also recognize that our neighbors have no and so we can be the translators a little bit. We can be the help steer the way this thing is written and organized. It might help, which is a good thing we can really do. Yes. Okay.
We are not expecting any one individual to read all 700 pages. But pick a chapter that you're interested in and read that chapter, right? And then give us feedback on that chapter.
Okay.
Well, this is Rupert. would like to take exception to Dave's remarks. I've been looking at LRTPs for decades now, it seems like, and this is the best one I've ever seen by far. So I think it's well done, well organized. It's got a lot of things in it I disagree with, of course, the projects. I have gone on the record almost every time one's come out of opposing all, not all, maybe 90-some% of the projects, because all they do is the same thing we've done before, and that is try to pave our way out of congestion and make it worse in the long run. But as far as making the presentation clear and excellent graphics, FAMPO staff is to be highly commended.
Thank you.
Saying that, there are a couple of things that I could point out right now if you want to pull them up. For example,
if it's individual words, I would say, if it's individual words, then I would say email that to us because we will correct those. If it's big conceptual things, then by all means, if you want to take those now, I don't mind. But we prefer the comments in writing because then we can actually incorporate them by cut and paste. But feel free to make generalized comments. We're happy to do it.
Most of the things are details like a missing bullet or a misspelled word and things like that.
Yep.
I won't bother you with that.
Please send those in writing. We'll fix them.
But how quickly can you pull up chapter 6? Yeah, chapter 6, page 1.
There it is.
You zoom in on the second paragraph. The second line, it says, if improvements are not made to the roadway system, 2050, once the region will experience severe congestion, so forth and so on. This is not true, and I object to presenting it to the public as so. It should read, if improvements are not made or congestion pricing is not introduced, we're going to be facing these problems.
No, let them come up with that. You could be an advocate for that particular viewpoint, but that's when the public should weigh in and reinforce or shoot down that notion.
The public would be delighted to weigh in on it if they ever heard the word congestion pricing. They never, hardly ever put it in these documents. The public should be aware that there is an alternative.
This is Josh again. You might say something, the word roadway, I don't mean to get into the words, but that may be your issue. It's not necessarily improvement to the roads themselves, it's to the whole transportation system. Although I haven't read chapter 6, maybe you don't.
We'll certainly look at the language on that page, and we'll see if perhaps we can make it broader so that it includes not just specific roadway improvements, but also other transportation improvements. So
yeah, let's hold off on that because that segues into 8C.
We can do that
as a new business item. Go ahead, Dave.
Just like to make one comment about congestion pricing, and I'm not entirely opposed to Rupert, he knows that over the years. But I can say this, I've never seen anybody put a price tag on congestion pricing, or even how much infrastructure would be affected by congestion pricing. And then who's going to be the advocate who goes into the neighborhood, my neighborhood, Mountain View Road, which I live off of. We had congestion there because there were about 600 trees that came down in here in the last week. Most of them are still there, just pushed off the side by VDOT or citizens. So I have yet to hear anyone, and I think there are some figures that probably Rupert could find, and then he may have mentioned it, cost in the past, but there's a cost involved in anything like that. And I'm opposed to putting something like that in a 2050 plan because it's worthless.
Well,
we have no idea.
Let's hold that thought, and when you get to new business, frame the topic that you've introduced as new business. So let's hold off on that. I would encourage you, just as Dave has pointed out, and here's an opportunity, get the community to look at part of this and say, does this pass the I understand it or my eyes glaze over test for starters? And then if it's comprehensible, then they can start weighing in substantively of, does this make sense for me and my needs? So we should all do that, and that's a great way to help build up the public involvement. Anything else you'd like to mention on this?
Just to say, we do appreciate Rupert's comments and the detail to which he goes, and we will certainly include everything that's not an opinion. In other words, if there's a factual error, if there's a bullet missing, if there's a point missing, we'll fix all of those if you just send them to us. And then the conceptual changes, obviously that depends on, you know, you've got to vote for it, whether the majority wants it or not. But certainly, Rupert, we thank you for your positive comments, and also all of those things you've written down, if you could just give them to us. We will go through the document with a fine-tooth comb and make any corrections and edits that are necessary. We know there are a couple.
I would say a public hearing is going to be an opportunity for that kind of stuff to come to the forefront, good, bad, or indifferent.
Remember, sorry, the final comment just on this. Remember that's the thing that Dave was talking about, the CLRP, which is the list of all the projects. Those projects do not come from FAMPO. Just remember that. Those projects come from your localities. It was your localities who said, we're going to blame it on you anyway. Yeah. We certainly can be blamed for coordinating it and doing the air quality analysis. But choosing the project was not our business.
In private forums, Ian Ellis is the guy. Okay, let's go to item 8B. Your concerns about Facebook or the issue. There are two things you want to include. One, that the Facebook discussion.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm delayed a little bit because I can't hear what they're doing, and I'm reading the text. Yeah, so we're on to item 8B now?
8B, right.
Okay. Yeah, well, got the gist of it from my original request, and that is Facebook is proved in the news lately to be a disreputable company, actually harmful to the country by perpetrating, disinformation,
controlling,
and using algorithms that encourage hate news rather than facts. So, having established that reputation, I would like to propose that the committee draft a letter or something to policy to indicate that we think the policy should consider dropping support of Facebook.
Before we draft anything, I would like to now expand this discussion at the next meeting. You've introduced this as a new business item, but there's got to be some substantive underpinnings to that. For example, in FAMPO's use of Facebook, and I'm not a social advocate, media advocate. I could barely turn on a computer. But has FAMPO experienced where anything that they have posted been changed or altered or modified? Have any citizens commented that their reaction to a FAMPO posting on Facebook, I'm assuming that's the only one we use, maybe we use others, has it been changed in any way? That should be part of the discussion at the next meeting, because if there's a substantive reason, then it's worthy of our discussion. But if we don't have any empirical data to demonstrate that it's acting against the interests of open information for FAMPO and what we do, then that's a different issue. So I would ask you to collect any facts that you might have in that regard. I'd ask the staff to take a look at your public engagement and see if anything has been altered or something doesn't smell right, and then we'll bring that back as a new discussion, old business item at the next meeting.
What you're saying is if we're not personally hurt by Facebook, we should let them go proceed on with that?
No. Facebook is, just like the internet, is filled with all sorts of stuff. If I am interested in a particular area and it has been demonstrated that that area is accurately portrayed, so I may use Facebook as a source of information, I'll go to it. But if they have demonstrated to me that they cannot be trusted, I will ignore that. I mean, there are some good things on Facebook in terms of informational things. Again, I'm not an advocate for any of this stuff. I don't like, Mark Zuckerberg. It doesn't matter. But if it is a useful tool for us to expand public awareness of factual issues, then that's an important consideration. If, for whatever reason, they are changing the message, the information, then that's an entirely different thing. That's what we should decide as a group. We just can't arbitrarily say that Facebook bad, Facebook good. So
that's not the way I look at it. I look at it sort of similarly to the library, having responsibility to subscribe to periodicals that are factual. If they subscribe to the New York Times or the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, whatever, but they don't subscribe to tabloids. This is sort of similar.
It might have been, I'm sorry, it might have been that,
would you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, Jaren's case. It might benefit us to see the metrics of how Facebook is benefiting the group, who's coming to it for information, how often do they, it might just be interesting to see some statistics on that too. It is an effective communication tool.
Yes.
In most cases, it would just be curious.
Stacy prepared a report in November, which we can make available to you before the next meeting.
Yeah, let's make that as a part of the agenda item for this discussion.
I don't disagree with the opinion, but you also, as someone who works in communications, you also want to crop your nose by your face and exclude people that might be getting their info that way, because a lot of people do.
Yeah.
If I may say something, David Swan. It's not our job. What we're leaning toward here is making a political statement, which we should avoid at all costs. And when we're making any statement regarding social media, like Facebook or Twitter or whatever the others are, I don't belong to any of them, so you educate me on that. But I can say that we have to consider the people we represent. And the majority of those people, I think just from knowing people and living here a long time, probably use Facebook. I don't believe there's anybody I know besides myself who doesn't use Facebook. The only reason I'm in Facebook
I
is
don't.
my daughters do.
Well, there's three of us now, Jane.
Outstanding, Jane. So you're with me. But I think that we would be making the wrong statement. We're acting basically on hearsay, and I know that Rupert's, he's a good researcher, so maybe he'll come up with some stats. But once again, those stats are regional or city specific or whatever they are, but they're not representative of the people that are in our cohort of responders who we like to have respond to us. And we might alienate them.
One more comment, and then I'm going to close this off and tell you why. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I was just going to say it's a little bit of a cost-benefit analysis. If there's a cost that, we're supporting, indirectly supporting, and there's some bigger issues with them. But on the other hand, if the benefit is, as we look down here, there's an announcement about the public comment period on the area transportation plan, FAMPO meeting for the East-West mobility study. Things are out there, and we're not fostering this big trolling and there's other issues that are going on. I think it's a cost-benefit analysis.
So I would like to table this to the next meeting, and we come up with a little bit more substantive kind of data, either in favor or against engagement with Facebook, from the FAMPO perspective, from any information you might be able to pull up. So we'll table this to a old business item at the next meeting. Now, let's go to 8C, which is, I'm sorry.
Just if anybody has, like Rupert or any one of the committee has information on this issue that you want us to send out with the agenda, please send it through. We'll attach it. We'll also find any data we've got on our work on social media and what we've done and what we haven't done and whether it's worked or not worked.
And including the read ahead, right?
So I'll happily, Rupert and others, just send us the stuff and we'll happily send it out before the next meeting so that in your agenda pack you'll have comments and statistics and whatever else you want.
One more relevant to that, since we're between Dave McLaughlin, since we're between outreach coordinators, we have a vacancy. Is this an issue that could be delayed until you actually have your outreach? It would be the point of contact, the lead for this effort, I would think.
For advice.
This is not a time critical issue, I don't think.
Well, it's not. spend a few minutes on it next meeting, and if we don't have adequate information, we can table it for a subsequent meeting. But it's worthy exploring as long as we have facts.
Sure.
Okay, 8C,
you know, we're making some decisions here, but we're not making any motions in seconds. I think for the record, you know, we need to entertain a motion that we're going to talk about.
Am I allowed to, no, am I allowed to table it?
Yeah.
Because we're not approving or disapproving it,
I guess, I don't know, but I would.
I said we're going to discuss it more later. No, there's no.
I have some.
Neil Holleran from Spotsy, I second the motion to table it.
What motion?
I'll make the motion that we make a discussion
One you made, Hank.
Data on the issue of the value of Facebook to CTAC at the next meeting. That's my motion.
Decision or further
Discussion.
Neil H., I second.
Whatever he said, okay.
Yeah. Make a motion to discuss it at the next meeting and in the agenda, actually in the agenda.
Okay.
Will do.
All right.
Easy enough.
Anyone against?
Is there any other discussion about the motion? Essentially,
Yeah.
we're going
Neil
to.
H. from Spotsy has a bit of discussion on this point. Can you all hear me all right?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, so look, it would behoove everyone to go look at Stacy's slide 4 from her public outreach slide that she gave to the policy committee last meeting, and look at all of the benefits that social media has done for FAMPO and outreach before we decide to say anything about Facebook, or God forbid, have FAMPO draft a letter saying we shouldn't use it anymore. That's all.
No, we're not going to draft a letter. This is going to be part of the handout for the next meeting so that people are armed with as much relevant information as currently exists. Okay, any other further discussion? So on the motion to table discussion of Facebook to the next meeting and the collection of information to be included in the
agenda
read-ahead or the read-ahead packet, we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? All right, could I call for a vote?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 8C, new business discussion of congestion pricing by Reuben Farley. Go ahead.
Right, I feel like we have a little bit of additional information to add, thanks to the 50-mile long traffic jam last week. In the past, I've from time to time tried to impress upon the committee and policy to have a legislative committee to go back and do away with the restrictions on congestion pricing that were put into place back in the 50s, I think, by the road building lobby. The reasons being, it saves us a heck of a lot of money because we don't spend much money setting up toll booths compared to putting in extra lanes and bridges. And we make money off of the congestion pricing tolls that can be used towards public transit. Those arguments have fell on deaf ears in the past. But we have a little additional argument we can add to that, and that is, in an incident like we had last week, we could have avoided that entire problem. Well, not the entire problem. It still would have snowed, and somebody would have been on the highway and made a mess. But we wouldn't have had people stuck in long lines of traffic for hours if they had just put up on the toll signs before the snow started, toll ahead, you know, like $10 a mile. It cost you $500 to get from here to DC. A lot of people would have decided, hey, for $500, I'm pulling off and staying in a motel until the toll goes down again. So I was just thinking that with this additional bit of information, CTAC could send a letter to FAMPO, to the policy committee, suggesting that they reconsider having a legislative committee, you know, lobbying in DC to get rid of this restriction, not being able to use congestion pricing on already established roads.
All right, discussion, okay.
I just had a question, if you don't mind. I have the definition pulled up about congestion price because I don't understand it. Can you explain to me exactly what congestion pricing is?
Can I give you the quick summary?
Because like I said, but I don't still understanding what it is.
So some cities in the world have introduced this thing, and they use electronic cameras to check which cars on the road. If the roads are very congested, for example, at certain times of the day, they put a price on you driving there and charge you like a toll fee for driving to that area.
Is it like the smart? Is it like the
Sort of like the hot lanes.
special?
Like the hot lanes. And they can charge you for certain times of the day higher fees because that's when everybody's trying to get there. And so what it does is it discourages people to go on the most congested roads because it's too expensive. So you take other roads, or you take your bicycle, or you get on the bus, but you don't drive your car to that very congested spot because it's going to cost you more money. So it's a way of using a fee to discourage behavior, to discourage you driving your car to the most congested places, and therefore it reduces the traffic.
That's correct, and that's because of traffic, not because of snow and Mother Nature. Neil Holloman's hot seat.
Okay,
Dave McLaughlin, we're doing that right now. That's what the hot lanes are. That's congested pricing. I don't understand what we're talking about. We're going to do that more and more. They're doing it around 95. What is this discussion? It's becoming more and more common.
I can answer that.
You can answer that.
Table the discussion. Spotsy is irrelevant to the CTAC and being able to control Mother Nature and/or acts of God on the highway. You're going to need to have people move around. The state police is not going to listen to congestion pricing prior to or after a snowstorm. They will move the stuff off the highway no matter what the cost. All you're doing is imposing costs on the Virginia government and taxpayers to pay them back after some disaster like what happened last week. Over.
Yeah.
okay,
Dave Swan, just a quick comment here. In a situation
motion on the
that
table,
we're,
Chair, motion on the table. Seconded or not, but I mean, throw it out, whatever, but let's vote on it.
there's no motion right now.
no, there's no motion on the table yet.
We've already talked about the Facebook.
I motion to table the discussion of this because it's irrelevant to what we're talking about here. Now, it doesn't have to be seconded, but it does have to be asked.
I'm not sure, this is a new business item that we're discussing.
No.
And what the chair feels is this has been raised for further examination. I don't think we should send a letter to anybody unless we have some salient points, perhaps some examples of success or not success that then can influence those people one way or the other. I'm not sure we could just say it's good and it would have stopped this, but if we have in subsequent discussion some good information, then that's something we can make a vote on. So can I have a motion?
You're not going to call for a second? That's great. Let's go. That's fine.
I'm not allowed to make my own motion. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So can I have somebody make a motion that we table this until the next meeting?
In
That's
terms
what I
of
just did.
procedure, sorry, sir, just in terms of procedure, if the person has put a motion on the floor, you have to hear it.
Right.
You can then put an alternative motion on
Was there a motion?
Yeah, Hank, maybe Hank couldn't hear you well, but he did make a motion.
To table it?
to table the
He did
discussion.
make a motion.
Okay, well then, my apologies. The motion has been made to table this to the next meeting so that it can be further examined. And if I'm putting words in your mouth, please tell me.
That's fine.
So we can make an informed decision on whether or not to forward a letter to the appropriate officials. Is that a reasonable summary of your motion?
I don't think we need to move it to the next meeting. It's just tabled. If it comes up, it comes up. It's on the agenda. That's great. We'll talk about it then. Sure, that's fine.
Are you agreeing with me or not?
Well, he didn't want to send a letter. Am I right, Hank?
No, we're not making a motion. Let's do this one more time. It's my belief that we need to have our facts straight before we should send a letter or not send a letter. So I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, your motion is to table this to the next meeting where we can discuss it in a more informed fashion as to whether or not a letter should be sent. Is that a fair representation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second that.
He seconds it. Dave seconds that.
Dave Swan.
Any other discussion about that?
Yes, so the motion is to table it to the next meeting. If I vote against this motion, then it's just not tabled and it may never come up again.
Or you can carry on discussing it now.
Yeah.
Or we can continue the discussion. Because we killed something doesn't mean it can't come up at a subsequent
So
meeting.
by voting for it, it would shorten this discussion tonight?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. I will vote for it.
All right, so the motion, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, I don't want to kill the discussion. I just want us to be a little bit more informed before we make decisions, that's all.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion has been made, seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a comment. Dave Swan. If you had congestion pricing and you were experiencing it in the express lanes, which I'm sure there were plenty of people, the problem we had with the storm in the 50-mile stretch is you could not get off 95. The exits and entrances were all covered in trees. I witnessed that today.
The motion on the table, the motion is about tabling this or not. It's not about the issue itself. So if you're...
Well, we're discussing, okay?
We're discussing the motion, not the
conditions.
Agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
He's trying to,
you can only talk to the
discussion.
motion, whether we should table it or not.
Yeah, let's...
Okay. So the motion seconded. Any other further discussion on tabling this motion? Whether it should or should not be tabled? Okay. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of tabling it until the next meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And again, the purpose is to make sure that we have more information so that we can look at this from a substantive, factual standpoint. Okay.
Again, if you want anything included in the pack for next meeting, send us whatever you want to put in the pack. We will make sure it gets put in the pack for you.
Okay, I'd like to turn to correspondence if there is any.
Public comment period first.
I'm sorry?
9 public comment period.
9 is public comment.
9. Oh, okay. Oh, well, no, let's see. Public comments. We already said there were no public comments.
There's 2 public comment periods.
Oh, there are 2? Okay. I'm sorry. That's right. You showed them to me. I apologize. Go ahead. If you could summarize those for us.
So there's no other, it's just a question of, is there any other public?
Anybody online?
You just have to call.
Has anybody listened to this whole meeting who's not a member who wishes to make a final public comment now?
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else want to make a public comment?
No.
Okay. All right. So we have the 2 that you've got. Have they been disseminated?
There were the comments from Ms. Lees, which were disseminated to Becky for the LRTP.
Okay.
That was it.
That's it.
All right. Staff reports.
Yeah, so correspondence, we have no items to report. Staff reports is just to introduce the lovely Becky Golden, which I very briefly did earlier. Welcome to her. Mr. Chair, Matthew has stood in to help us with CTAC while we didn't have a staff member. I've asked Becky to become the point person for you in the future to coordinate your meetings, to prepare and send out the agendas, to deal with the correspondence, etc. And so she, with her 30 years of experience, will be available to the CTAC from next month's meeting on a fairly permanent basis.
Great.
So you won't have different faces all the time, but thank you to Matthew for standing in. And he's going to just help Becky to get up to speed on what's all involved, but she will be your person.
Okay.
And that's the only staff reports that I'm aware of, apart from what Matthew has got on the screen for you, which is the calendar. And Matthew, do you want to walk through any of that?
Nothing major here, just the list of when the planned CTAC meetings are, CAC meetings are, policy committee meetings are, and so on, for the following, I guess, calendar year of 2022.
So that's in your pack. You can put it in your calendars, and you will know when all of your meetings are for the year.
The next CTAC meeting is scheduled for February 9th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Question, are there any where the CTAC meet after the policy committee? It doesn't look, I'm looking at it real quick. I'm sorry, I didn't look into that.
Look at the calendar. It's no good.
No.
It doesn't seem to be. Okay, good. So we don't want to do that. Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, done. Thank you very much.
Member reports, the only thing I'll reiterate is, as I mentioned, I met with the Stafford Board of Supervisors and made a quick presentation to them, 3-minute presentation about CTAC and what we want to do. And then I also met with the Stafford County planning staff to get feedback from them as to how they think things go and how we can improve it and so on. We'll probably see more depending on the organization. I would ask, again, all of you, I've sort of leaned on the 3 of you to give us your best shot at rewickering that. And for anybody else online or present, or to include members that we haven't even brought on board yet, if you have a desire to participate in one of these 3 sub-focus committees or areas, send an email to me. You can CC Ian or anybody. He'll get it to me, and give us an indication of whether you'd like to participate or take a leadership role. Again, this is not to put a burden on anybody, but I want to capture those who have an interest in an area and would like to do some work, and that work is subject to your availability and your desire to do so. Okay, any other member reports from anybody? The next meeting time has been stipulated. Unless there is any other discussion from online or present, can I have a motion that we adjourn?
Move adjourn.
Second.
Dave seconded. Rupert proposed. Dave seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Come on, Neil, oppose it.
Thank you, everyone.